Whoa, no headphones? When was the last time that happened? Hi, it's DragonKeeper9600, and I'm here to review the first episode of the web series Transformers Combiner Wars. Now, I did almost promise, a reaction vid, and I did record one, but Machinima is being kind of weird with this episode. I think it was supposed to be available on YouTube, but the current link is not working. It says the video is unavailable, and judging by the dislike bar, I can kind of guess why, but I hope that's not the reason. Seems a little unscrupulous to remove a video just because some people don't like it. But, whatever. At the risk of getting to avoid the risk of getting yet another copyright strike on my channel, I've decided to just go ahead and review it, since I have a lot to say about this episode, and honestly, it's too short for me to say it throughout the reaction vid without ending up just tacking review on the end. Anyway, so let's start with the basics. The first episode was called The Fall, and it takes place mostly on Caminus. I knew this was a miniseries going in, but I think the episode, at least this first episode, was a bit shorter than what people were expecting. I think, I read on Tumblr, some people thought that episodes would have a length of 8 minutes. This episode was just over 5 minutes, so even by the short length we were promised, it's really short. And some shows can tell stories, or at least part of a story, in just a few minutes. One show that comes to mind is RWBY, which you may have heard of, which is a Rooster Teeth show. I wasn't really crazy about RWBY when I saw it, but when I compare it to this, it does come out a little more favorable, because the first episode of RWBY and the first episode of Combiner Wars both start off with action sequences, and it's between characters you don't recognize, but you can in RWBY you can kind of see a good and evil force. Like, you know who the bad guys are, and you know who the good guy is, and like afterward there's more of a talky scene where like some exposition is laid out, and you get to know more about the world and stuff. On the other hand, RWBY is kind of heavy at the beginning with sort of world building, like the very, like, Star Wars-esque. It doesn't do it through a text call, but it's like, this is the world and this is what's going on. Combiner Wars doesn't have that. The opening scene is Menasor and Computron fighting in space above Caminus. What are they doing there? Why are they fighting? What's going on? These are the 3 questions that will not be answered in this episode. Computron is an Autobot, I guess, and Menasor is a Decepticon, so maybe that's why they're fighting, but I thought the premise of the show was that the war is over, and Menasor seems to talk about the other Combiners as, like, a sort of kinship, like, the rest of us Combiners are coming, he says stuff like that, but then the first thing we see him do is murder the shit out of another Combiner, so it's weirdly inconsistent, and, these inconsistencies, I feel, aren't going to be addressed for a reason that you've probably heard about this episode, even if you haven't seen it. The death toll is really high. Like, there are 4 characters in this episode, if you count each Combiner as one character. One of them walks away alive at the end. Yeah, Computron, Menasor, and a third character called Maxima all die. And it's a 5-minute episode. So if you count each of the Combiner's limbs as an individual and assume that they die too when the main guy dies, which I assume they would, that was 13 deaths in the first episode. In 5 minutes! That's insane! And when I was watching these fight scenes, I realized these characters are made of cookie dough. Like, first of all, this is something that was emphasized a lot in the advertising for the show. This is the Transformers show for adults. No kids allowed. Out of the pool. It's adult swim time. Like, it was going to be heavier with the atmosphere. It was going to tackle more darker themes and more adult subject matter. It was gonna, it was really nailing on the nitty-gritty. They really emphasized that. And when you see, there's one point where Maxima gets smacked into a wall. It's how she dies, and 2 of her limbs fly off. And it makes me realize, if you smacked a human into a wall, their arms wouldn't fly off like that. It's kind of weird when human beings seem sturdier than these giant transforming robots. And what it made me realize is that in kids' shows, there's death in the kids' shows. A lot of death in some of them. But death was treated as a big deal, because death is a big deal to a child. And so when the characters die, it barring faceless mooks like the Viacons, it usually happens because something big and important happened. In this show, I don't know if it'll keep up this precedent. There's no way they can kill as many characters per episode as they did in this one. They'll run out of characters. But it seems like death is being treated as less of a big deal because it's for adults, and as a result, the Transformers in the children's shows come across as much stronger than the ones for adults because they can take a hit. They can be grabbed without losing a leg. They can survive getting their leg cut off. Stuff like that, and it's just weird to see them fall apart this easily. I mean, I made a comment during the reaction vid like, Jesus, even in the 1986 film, they didn't come apart this easily. At least when Brawn died with Brawn. At least when Brawn died with a single shot, he was still in one piece when he fell. There's no such luck here in Combiner Wars, so that's bizarre. Okay, so I guess I should talk about Windblade a little bit. I don't know anything about Windblade. I know she's due to appear in Robots in Disguise, but I haven't gotten to the part where she appears. From what I've seen on Tumblr, she seems to be a character who hangs around Starscream a lot, which makes sense. She's fan-created. It makes sense that a character who's created by the fans would hang around Starscream. But from what I've seen from Tumblr, a lot of people are complaining that she's out of character in the show, that she seems a little more murder-happy, something that Menasor even taunts her about. And if Menasor is calling you kill-happy, you probably need to take a long, hard look at your life choices. It's true. But I think, character development is also something that I feel like is suffering, and I get that maybe it's because of the 5-minute running time, but even, I'm going to go back to Ruby again, and it's weird to compare this to favorably to a show that I don't actually like, but you could get personality from the characters in just the few minutes that they had for the first episode. You got Ruby was a naive girl who was tough, yet didn't really get the weight of the whole fighty thing, whatever they were doing. It's been a few months since I saw Ruby. I don't remember what they were fighting about. And then you got, the bad guy that we saw was, this Clockwork Orange Alex type and, stuff like that. And it was clearly established what's going on and what they were supposed to be doing without watching any previous trailers. This show is just kind of assuming that you've seen all the trailers and you know the setup. So I seriously doubt that anyone who has seen this episode wouldn't know what a combiner was. But let's say you're the theoretical viewer who maybe just went on to Go 90 and doesn't know what a combiner is. This episode doesn't tell you. It kind of has the same problem as Transformers Energon, where you never see the different limbs of the combiners as separate individuals. They're only ever shown in their 6-person robot mode. I mean, just a quick sequence of 6 guys combining to a big guy would give you the gist of it. And I get that combiner isn't a complex word and be easier to figure it out, but show don't tell? This is a show you're making. I will say one thing positively. The fight scenes are pretty good. They're not as good as Prime, but I don't think we were expecting them to be. Prime was, had a huge budget and was, on TV and stuff, and this is online by Machinima. They did cheat a little bit, in the opening fight with Computron and Menasor. They're fighting, above the planet's atmosphere. It's clear that they have, a spinning background, and with the planet and the sky, and it's just rotating around them. So probably without that, the fight wouldn't look as exciting. But with that added, it looks really dynamic, and they're moving around. It's it's just back and forth punching. It's kind of cool that it's one long continuous shot though. But there's it's it feels like they're cheating, and I get it. They have to cheat. They probably don't have the lofty budget, and the animation shows. I did mention during the action vid that the animation is better than Cybertron Caliber, which is pretty good. Something that's made for the web is better than what was on TV a decade ago. But, the characters do have facial expressions, so we have that. Better than Cybertron in that regard. There are like a few creative moments with the fights. Like there's one moment where Menasor is going after Maxima and Windblade, and you can see that Menasor is tall enough to take up 2 stories. So he's actually like having to wade through the floor of the second story because he's just that big and that strong, and that's kind of cool. And there's another brief moment I like where Maxima uses thrusters on her feet to singe Menasor's face, and that's kind of cool. Like, I like it when fights get more complex than just punch, punch, kick, kick, which is basically what Menasor and Computron's fight was, except with more spinning. I need a drink. Sorry, I'm trying to think of what to talk about next. Talking unscripted is hard. Oh, I guess I'll talk about the script. 5 minutes. Not much that can be said, but I feel like there wasn't any reason for this to have a 5-minute running time. Like, if we were promised 8 minutes, and I don't know if we were, but if we were, I think this could have benefited from the extra 3 minutes. Just more dialogue, more of a... You don't have to talk to us like babies, and you don't have to do a Star Wars crawl, but... I mean, something. And it doesn't help that I don't know who voices Menasor. Apparently it's someone who's kind of well known on the internet. Guy has a bit of a lisp, and he has like weird inflections, and it's sometimes hard to tell what he's saying. Like, there's one line where he says like, the council is going to build an army of combiners, but the way he says the word council, it sounds like console. Like, it took me like several viewings, which I had time to do because 5 minutes. It took me several viewings to figure out what he was trying to say, like, what? Oh, council! And he has a bit of a lisp. Did I mention the lisp already? Yeah, whatever. Well, I think they kind of lampshade that, where, like, he, like, tells Windblade, I've never been much of a talker, so, like, that's probably intentional. And there are some times where it kind of works. Like, where he gets louder and starts screaming, you can kind of hear how crazed he is. But yeah, I feel like any character that we could get from Menasor is wasted since he dies at the end of the episode. But the writing. Writing is a little unimpressive, and I get it. First episode. Not much to say. Not much of a running time. But...
Probability of my survival is 0. What a nerd.
It's really disheartening. Menasor called Computron a nerd. What are you supposed to do with that? I get that it was a joke. Like, a line that bad couldn't have been made earnestly. And again, it does feed into the crazed personality, but, I mean, come on. If this is supposed to appeal to 80s fans, I can't imagine Menasor in the 80s saying something like that. In the 80s! And, there's, like, the conflicts that they set up are kind of pretty basic, almost cliches, actually. Like, Windblade's angry, and she's used to be peaceful, but now she's edgy, and she's tough. She's not taking violence lying down. She's gonna end violence by bringing on the peace of the night and Shadow the Hedgehog. You can't spell edge without Stonehenge. Well, actually, you can spell Stonehenge without edge. There's no D in Stonehenge. But regardless, it's, and there's one part where, like, she's cuts down Menasor, and Menasor taunts her, saying that you're a killer just like me. And, why would that bother her? I mean, I don't know. I don't know enough about her to know why that would bother her. I guess killer is a word that has inherently negative connotation, but from the Prelude trailer, it seems like she was all about that. I will watch the light in their eyes as their sparks and expire and, all that metal crap. So I don't know what she's suddenly gasping in shock when Menasor calls her a killer. But, I guess it is kind of clever, like the juxtaposition between when Menasor cuts down one of his own kind, and then Windblade also cuts down a combiner, showing supposedly violent combiner's action, directly comparing it to her own incredibly violent action. But, whatever. I mentioned earlier that this video is not currently on the Machinima channel. And it's so funny because, like, okay, in the description for the video, like, it gives a brief summary, like, Metasaur and Computron are fighting about Caminus, and then Windblade and her new friend Maxima. And it's so funny the way they talk about Maxima, like introducing the new Transformers character Maxima. It's like, okay. Maxima, the new character they're introducing, is a pink femme bot. I don't know why the word femme is used by fans, but it is. She's a pink female Transformer. I've never seen that before. And she dies first episode. And it's so funny that they're like, introducing Maxima, and she fucking dies in less than 5 minutes. Like, we don't even see her face, because she keeps her face mask up the whole time. Like, you couldn't even render a face for this girl? Like, what? Introducing Maxima. She's the Dion. She's the Asian guy at the beginning of Temple of Doom. She's the Biggs. She's just here to die. Why are you talking about introducing her like she's some kind of cool person that we're really excited to meet? Like, I mean, I need another drink. Hold on. And also, when she dies, Windblade, like, goes through this show of grieving her, but it seems a little rushed. Like, this whole story seems by the numbers. You have a character who has a conflict. They're getting more violent than they used to be. Tick. You have a villain taunting, giving the not so different speech. Tick. You know, you have, like, when Maxima dies, she, like, says, "For Maxima," she cuts down Metasaur, right? Okay. And then, like, she holds Maximus close to her chest and cries. Actually cries. Like, there are no tears. She doesn't wipe her face or anything, but she's clearly making sobbing noises, despite the fact that she's a robot. And then, a second later, still crying, she grabs her gun. I think it's supposed to be Maxima's gun, but I don't know. She grabs a gun off the ground, looks up at the sky. Sorrow is gone, replaced only by anger, and then she flies away. It's like, it's really quick, and it seems like she kind of got over the death of her friend really fast. Like, she's like, oh, that was fun. Like, honestly, I feel like it would be more subtle if she did something like, I don't know, gently laying out Maxima's body and, like, folding her hands on her chest or something. Like, that would be a little less mood whiplashy. I feel like this whole thing, I feel like I watched a rough draft. Like, I feel like it could use a few rewrites. Like, showing the combiners actually combining. That would be something. Or, you know, having, like, the moment with Maxima, or just, I don't know, there's a bunch of things. I feel like this could be made better very easily, but as it is, it's kind of a sloppy product. I can't deny that I'm a little disappointed, but, you know, first episode, hopefully it will get better from here on out. I am still a little excited to see Starscream, and we haven't seen the council that's been built up so much. And this isn't going to be, I really hope this isn't going to be the Windblade show, because that's not what we were promised. We were promised Combiner Wars, and she's not the only one with a preview trailer, but there are the seeds of an interesting story being sown here, but I really hope that future episodes are done with a little more finesse than what we saw here today. But yeah, I'm cautiously optimistic. Honestly, I found that the more I watched this episode, the more I enjoyed it. Well, at first I was kind of confused because I'm not used to watching web series in this format. The more I watch it, the more it has this kind of charm. One more quick thing I should mention is, I don't know if it's just the resolution on Go 90 or something, or maybe it's just the lighting on Caminus in particular, but the screen almost seems kind of smudgy. Like, it seems kind of blue, and the lighting is, like, weirdly diffused, so it's like, I feel like I need to blink. Like, I'm watching this show through clouded goggles. I don't know why it looks like that. The trailers didn't look like that. Hopefully the rest of the episodes won't look like that. So, kind of a disappointing start, but we'll see where it goes from here. Strand Keeper 9600, signing off.
But you can't kill us all. The Council has the enigma of combination. They're gonna build an army of combiners!
They would never dare.